Welcome back to the Becoming Shameless podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Wallace.
I'm your host, Josiah Bain.
And today we will be discussing the topic of self respect. So, this is a topic I feel like is very important, especially because it's now New Year. Because I feel like this is a topic that, especially as Christians, we kind of struggle with. Because I feel like a lot of times it's not really mapped out, and I feel like there's a lot of things that are misunderstood. What are some things you feel like people or Christians struggle with when it comes to self respect and why?
I would say not compromising your self respect for um, like your position in the church or your position amongst your peers or things of that nature. And that looks like I'm working so many hours, or I want to climb the ladder in my organization or at church or whatever it may be. Like, you want to become a deacon in the church,
Mm-hmm.
and so you want your position so badly that you kind of lose correct morale in the sense of you start compromising yourself and your respect by overworking yourself. Now you're spending extended amount of hours somewhere that you shouldn't. You should probably just go home. You should probably just get some rest. And now you're just doing all this just so you can climb a ladder. That's what.
So, what's the impacts of too much compromise in your opinion?
Too much compromise can lead to burnout.
I was thinking those exact words,
Yeah.
burnout. Like I feel like too much compromise leads to burnout, which then leads to resentment. And a lot of Christians I realize are very bitter and people.
And it's more than just physical burnout. It's emotional burnout, spiritual burnout, mental burnout, and that kind of shows itself in a lot of ways. How a lot of people be um, like some people in the church will be like, I'm blessed and highly favored, but then you talk to them and they be all rude and stuff like that. A lot of times it's just
It's nasty.
they're burnt out. Like they don't have any more emotional capacity to deal with somebody in a decent manner. They just pop off on everybody. So
I definitely agree. And I, like you said, like they can become nasty, but I think that's the thing I feel like I see a lot is resentment. A lot of times people, it's our responsibility for us to stand on our boundaries, our morals, our values, and on our self-respect. And a lot of times we try to make other people responsible for that, and it's like when they keep violating it, we get upset and we start to resent them. But it's like it's your job to actually stand on your boundaries, and when you don't, you kind of can't get mad because we teach people how to treat us. So it's like if you're constantly like making allowance for certain things and being tolerant of certain things, then they're not going to see it as wrong. Even if you emotionally don't like it, especially if you don't communicate it, then it's kind of like, how are they supposed to know? It's the norm. It's like if I text you first all the time, right? And I'm deep down, I'm really hurt because you never reach out to me first, but I continuously text you first. That is the normal pattern. So like at that point, are they really wrong? They're just abiding in a pattern that I created.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree. I think it leads to a lot of burnout. I also think one of the like misconceptions when it comes to self respect, I feel like this applies to most things, but I feel like it's very like a dualistic way of thinking where it's like people I've noticed are usually they fall on either one side of the extreme or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But there's never really a middle ground. So you have those who will they're so self respect, but it's really haughtiness. Like, yeah, I don't have to do this. Don't catch a pearl among swine. Looking
Mm-hmm.
down and like on other people. Then you get the other side where it's like, well, God says forgive and da 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 to the
Mm-hmm.
point they have no boundaries. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
you can forgive people
Mm-hmm.
and not allow access,
Mm-hmm.
and you can create distance
Mm-hmm.
without being closed off
Mm-hmm.
too. And I think there needs to be a middle ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I mean, we talked about it before, that holding that tension between the two extremes is tough, especially when people somebody hasn't really grasped an understanding of their own humanity. Like a lot of times when people will say, like you said, like, I'm above this, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna allow myself to go to this level, right? And you gotta first take a little bit of introspective thinking of where were you at at one point in your life, because I feel like everybody was at a point where they had somebody on the other side which they didn't meet the standard. They didn't hit the bar. And even if you're a Christian, that is literally the whole point of grace and salvation, is we always miss the mark and we always don't hit the bar. So there is somebody, which is Jesus, which we always are falling short of. And if he came in was like, I can't mess with you, I gotta level up my standards, or I gotta be at a certain point, then quite frankly I don't think any of us would be qualified to be a child of God. But like I was saying, you have to be able to kind of have an introspective standpoint of where was I at one point in my life, and where is the line that I can draw where I'm understanding where this person is at, and I'm also creating a boundary with grace and truth. And you can do that without being nasty. You can do that without like completely just kicking them out your life, right? You can just make a statement with them saying, this is what's happening, this is what I'm feeling, this is the boundary that I need to draw. And so
That's good.
it's a good way to go about it, and a lot of people just don't understand that yet, which it's not a fault of that.
I think because a lot of times the way they look at it is filtered through a lens of pride and not actually self-respect. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's kind of like like you said, like I'm not going for this, da da da. But it's like the reason you don't leave room for grace is because how you view yourself. You think too highly of yourself to the point you can't even empathize or even be human or acknowledge like maybe they didn't understand or maybe they don't know this. Now of course I feel like if somebody violates a non-negotiable, that's a little different. But some things I feel like people use, I think a big issue even I have with like people in the church or just other Christians sometimes is like using the Bible to not endure. I feel like the Bible and God prepares us to endure all things and all trials and circumstances, but I notice a lot of times that falls short when it comes to relationships, and we're using everything as a getaway excuse to not pursue a deeper relationship with people because we don't have a good relationship with conflict. So the moment somebody upsets us, it's like, well, God didn't give me a spirit of confusion, and something from God would have made me upset. And it's like, no, like, bro, they brought up an issue with you, or you have an issue with them, address it. And I think I'm keeping it being, a lot of Christians are cowards.
That's true.
It's the truth. A lot of Christians are cowards, and they use the Bible to not have emotionally intelligent conversations, because just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're emotionally intelligent. And a lot of them just use scripture to avoid conflict. And so it's like
the scriptures that they picked out that
cherry picking. They didn't read the verse before or after just to affirm what they're saying, and it's like that's an issue. And it's like that's not really self-respect. That's really you trying to preserve yourself or preserve your emotions, but that's not respecting yourself. I think true respect for yourself is actually vulnerability. Being honest, like, you know what, that hurt my feelings. And because of that, like you said, this is a boundary that I have to set. If you cross that boundary, then I can no longer proceed with this relationship. If you abide by this boundary, then we can have a healthy relationship. And I think that's the thing. I feel like a lot of times we're just trying to excuse our bad behavior with scripture, and then we try to tell ourselves that's loving ourselves, and it's like that's not loving yourself or self-respect whatsoever. And then it kind of even goes into where like people is like associating good things with good feelings. That's part of the issue with self-respect. Like people think respecting myself is doing things that make me feel good about myself, and like nah, self-respect is doing sometimes the hard thing. It's having the hard conversation.
It's probably like 90% doing the hard thing.
95. Real talk.
Nothing that's good for us honestly feels good.
Literally
long term.
And that's the issue. It's like the two extremes, but people don't find the middle ground. And a lot of times it's because people aren't seeking the truth in the situation, they're seeking confirmation bias. So it's like, I need to respect myself. And it's like, that's why I think one of the dangers of social media too, because if you feel some type of way, you'll see something on your TikTok like, don't deal with this, don't tolerate that. And it's like there's so much nuance not being addressed, but also like we're not good at gauging our hearts. That's why God's the best judge of our hearts. And a lot of times we'll convince ourselves we're doing it in self-respect, but like I said, a lot of times we're doing it from a place of pride. Like this person hurt your feelings and you don't want to follow up the conversation to see where they're at or try to understand, we're just quick to like cut people off, and I think that's just cowardly. That's cowardly. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's the easy way out for sure. It's definitely the easy way out. I can't think of honestly how many times when we were talking about if it's a non-negotiable, then I can't think of how many times where somebody has like crossed, like blatantly crossed a non-negotiable. Like
That's a good point. Yeah, you're right.
like when somebody was like like I can't think of somebody. I can't think of a situation, and there's maybe probably like in my life 3, 4. It's less than 2 digits where somebody woke up and they blatantly crossed the line, and then you approach them and they're just like, yeah, I knew it was wrong. I just wanted to do it just because. That's like, all right.
At that point,
You clearly just
don't care.
yeah. So, but other than that, it's been like things that rub me the wrong way, or things that I interpreted a certain way that may or may not have been that way, or this person was building up some sort of resentment or anger that I didn't know about, and
Making a list.
yeah, and then it just blows up in your face, which is to your point of vulnerability, like being vulnerable before, and so your heart stays soft and you don't get calluses on your heart, and then you just blow up on them.
Heart turned to cement.
Is a very important skill to have, especially if you're trying to live a life after Christ.
And I think fear as well as compromise, as we said earlier, is a big reason like people don't respect themselves. Like, and they won't be vulnerable. And like you said, you can't be vulnerable. I mean, you can't have self-respect without being vulnerable. Like, you know what? The first time you did it, Josiah, this really upset me. But a lot of times, we'll lie to ourselves in our pride and say, "Oh, I'm letting them slide," or even defend the doubt. But in reality, you're afraid to address how you feel, and it's like, free yourself. Like, address how you feel, because the life you want is your responsibility. Like, of course, God provides the outcome, but it's on you to make certain actions. And it's like, I think a lot of people, we're too dependent on others to shape our reality and to shape our experiences, where it's like you could just communicate what you want, and if somebody doesn't want to align with it, whether it be a friend, peer, or job opportunity, etc., then that's fine. That's their choice. But it's like, if we keep consistently putting people's actions as the baseline on how we're gonna navigate our life, we're gonna be cooked. And that's a lot of times the issues. We're putting our emotions as someone's responsibility, and then instead of addressing how we feel, we'll just walk away in the name of self-respect without ever communicating how we felt about it in the first place. And I think this is false perception that people always know better. They don't. Just because I'm around you all the time, I don't know I can't know things you don't tell me. And it's like, even if I might be able to pick up on it, most people probably aren't that emotionally aware. And that's not that they're bad people, but everybody has their own experiences, traumas, etc. So they're only looking through life through the lens that they're looking at. So why are you expecting somebody to understand your lens if you don't communicate how you look at it? Like, we could look at something and get completely different interpretations on it. So it's like, in that, it's like we have to be vulnerable to respect ourselves. And also, I think we just have to be honest to respect ourselves. I think a lot of times we're not being honest about how we feel about stuff because we don't want to lose out on stuff. Like, for example, like, if somebody cheats on you, bro, you can tell yourself you forgive them and that you're okay with it, but how you navigate past that will show you if you are. Now you have these feelings of anxiety. It's like, where are you at? All this other stuff. And it's like, I think we have to be okay with being honest with ourselves and okay with being having a loss. Like, you're gonna lose things in life. We're gonna lose relationships and people. And I think the issue is, with a lot of times, we're trying to hold on so tightly that we end up hurting ourselves and not respecting ourselves. Like, some things in life you just simply can't move past, and that's okay. Yes, you forgive them, but we can't move further in a relationship. You cheated on me, though I forgive you. We can't further the relationship because now I have trust issues, and now I'm always questioning you. Even if you have changed as a person, I can't move past that. And I think a lot of times in life, we're trying to convince ourselves to move past things that we simply can't. And we try to tell ourselves it's because we're being loving and forgiving, but a lot of times it's because we're afraid of loss and we're not respecting ourselves. And it's okay to not be able to move past certain things. Doesn't mean you love them any less. Doesn't mean you're not being a forgiving person. Forgiving somebody is not holding it against them anymore. Doesn't mean you have to give them a level of access. And in that, it's like, the more you give people access to your life when they've done things to cross certain non-negotiables, You just disrespect yourself, and that breeds even more resentment. Cause now you're blaming it on the other person, but you're the one allowing it in your life. That's your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I just think a lot of it, a lot of the issue, I guess, basically we're talking about is compromise, lack of honesty, and vulnerability. But it's like, you know how it says in the Bible, like, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm.
I feel like if you don't know how to love yourself, you can't love your neighbor.
Mm.
So in trying to love your neighbor, a lot of times what you'll end up doing is making them an idol,
Mm.
and you won't let it go, and you'll prioritize it over even your own benefit and over your own self-respect. And I think we need to explain what loving yourself looks like practically. And I think people, they can say love yourself, but a lot of times they conflate loving yourself with liking yourself. So it's like I'm gonna surround myself with people who give me positive vibes, good energy. But a lot of that times you're doing that and you're not surrounding yourself with people who correct you and who provide you wisdom, or you want to be around people who have fun with you, etc. And they're agreeable and they're down for whatever, but you're not really down for somebody who is going to challenge you. And I think it's because if we don't understand what loving yourself looks like, we will trade that in for liking ourselves, even at the expense of actually loving ourselves.
I think too, because I know there's somebody who, out of the, I don't know how many people listen to this, but
As long as it's one, it don't matter.
whoever's listening to this, because I know there's a point in somebody's mind where they're like, how do I push past that initial, like, the thought comes up, you're in a situation, the thought comes up, and it's like, I could be vulnerable right now, but I'm not going to, right? And so, like, I feel like we all been in that situation, giving somebody the courage and giving somebody the awareness for themselves in that moment to be like, yo, in this moment, I'm going to choose to be vulnerable. I'm going to choose to be honest. I'm going to choose self-respect, because I think, to your point, a lot of times we conflate self-respect with us protecting ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
we put up all these guards, right? We put up all these walls. We don't put up boundaries. We put up walls so that we are protecting ourselves, because that's what us love looks like. If we protect ourselves from all danger and are always comfortable, then we love ourselves, when in reality that's not true. Honestly, there is no form of love where there isn't any risk.
And there's no pain.
When there's no pain, there is no
gain.
There is no gain, exactly.
Literally.
So, like, love, you can't. Somebody said, oh my goodness, you can't love somebody and be risk adverse. Like, you can't be somebody who's scared to take a risk and then say you love somebody.
Because loving itself is a risk.
It's always a risk. And so somebody who's on the other side of the camera and they're like, yo, like, you have to take that risk of being vulnerable and maybe not being understood. Like, being vulnerable in a moment and getting a completely different response than what you had planned for.
Being vulnerable and getting rejected.
Like, that is like, and sitting in that uncomfortable space of just, like, afterwards, like, after the rejection.
Yeah.
And the thoughts that go through your mind, that's like, I knew I shouldn't have been vulnerable. Like, I knew I shouldn't have done this. Like,
but I think that also even comes with, like, self-respect and self-worth. Like, if you value yourself, right, it's like in your best interest to communicate how you feel, even if somebody isn't receptive, because then it's like, you know what, really ask yourself certain questions, like, would I want somebody in my life who doesn't care? Would I want somebody in my life who doesn't have the desire to understand? And when you think of it like that, it's like you realize I'm more okay with being vulnerable, because reality is gonna weed out what I don't want.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times it's like we could sit there and say we love ourselves and value ourselves, but it's really reflected in how we navigate a lot of things. And if you're being avoidant a lot of times, really what you're trying to do, you're not just trying to protect yourself, you're trying to protect how you view somebody, because you know they're probably going to fail you. Which in life, people are going to fail you. But if you really don't trust this person to navigate that properly based on how they operate, then you're kind of already aware that person doesn't need to be in your life. You're just not being honest about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I know I struggle with that too. It's like I try to preserve people's image in my life. In reality, because you've shown yourself not to be trustworthy.
Yeah.
So if I already know that, then it's like reality. It's like I can't even be upset with you.
Yeah.
That's really a me thing. And it's like you said, there's no reward without any risk. And love is one of those things that is one of the most fulfilling things, but that requires a level of vulnerability that I think that we're just not comfortable with. But pain is inevitable. I think we need to understand that too. Like no matter what, you can suffer the risk of regret or knowing trying and not getting what you want. Which one do you think is worse? You know what I mean? And I think you should just try. What's the saying? It's better to love at loss than never love at
I was
all.
literally just thinking that. Literally, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it's like it's. I understand. Like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm on the other side of it and I don't understand. Like I get it wholeheartedly. I'm just grief has pushed me to at this point, honestly. But in reality, it's like pain really is inevitable. It's like you got to deal with it anyway. It's kind of like why not face it head on now in truth, than have to be forced to deal with it later. You know what I mean? Because when you deal with it later, it's gonna have way worse effects and impacts on you, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. But it's like we got to do a better job at holding that space for vulnerability and just being okay with the potential outcome of never getting what I want. It's kind of heard somebody say that even regarding God, like, will you be faithful even if you don't get the promise? You know what I'm saying? Like Abraham didn't see the many nations, but he was still faithful because he trusted in it. And it's kind of like, will you still operate in honesty and love if you don't see the benefits of it from the people you want? How are you going to navigate it? And I think we got to stop. Honestly, we're settling. We're settling for a crumb because we're afraid of not getting what we really want on the main entree. And it's like, it's okay. Like, we got to be honest. We got to respect ourselves as human beings. But you really can't love others or respect yourself if you don't know how to. You don't know what it looks like. And like, what does that look like in practicality? Like, if you were to talk to somebody right now and be like, this is what loving yourself looks like, how would you describe it?
I would say loving yourself looks like everything you're afraid of doing. Like everything that you are kind of steering away from, that you're kind of nervous about doing. That's what loving yourself looks like, because loving yourself looks like being uncomfortable for a season, and so that long term you can learn how to live uncomfortably, which is for the benefit of you and for the benefit of those around you. So yeah, I mean, that's whatever you're thinking about in your head that you wanted to do, whatever conversation you wanted to have, whatever thing that you saying, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, which I feel like is a lot. Loving yourself can look like, I'm gonna go to the gym, and those moments where you don't want to go to the gym, you want to be uncomfortable, you don't want to be uncomfortable, and then that's when you gotta choose to be uncomfortable and love yourself, or having that conversation. It's gonna make you uncomfortable. You gotta choose an uncomfortable route. Managing your life a certain way, managing your finances a certain way. You're like, man, that's a lot of work. I don't feel like doing that. That's the way to go. Like literally every single path that I can think of, where it's like, I don't really feel like doing this. This is gonna make me uncomfortable. I just want to take the easy route. The easy route, like that's the easy route, never leads to where you think it's gonna go.
So what would self-respect look like then?
The same way. I feel like self-respect and self-love
go hand in hand.
Go hand in hand.
I agree. In simple terms, I think self-respect looks like advocating for yourself honestly.
Yeah.
You are responsible for yourself and your life. So advocate for the life that you want. You know what I mean? And be okay with it's like negotiating for a contract. Like you might hear a bunch of no's, but eventually you'll hear yes. But at least you know your worth and what you want for yourself, and you're not gonna settle for less than what you actually want. And I think a lot of self-respect comes from self-value, and I feel like if you truly know who you are in Christ, your self-value should be higher than what you should be very high. And in that should lead you to have a level of self-respect, but even then, not in a sense of pride and haughtiness, but it should also lead you to be able to be empathetic as Christ respected himself. Now, of course, Jesus had a bunch of followers, but he had 12 disciples. So it was like knowing how to follow the guideline that Jesus, had created for us. I think we could also implement that in our lives, and that will help us know how to deal with different situations in terms of self-respect and advocating for ourselves.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, man, that's it.
That's good.
That's it for me.
Till next time.